Okay, part 3. I'll try to go through this faster. I thought you might want to see where I am. I am sitting in what I call my grandma's corner. I'm in a rocking chair in my bedroom. Here it is. I think you can tell what color is my favorite color, right? I'm sitting by a plant, which provides good oxygen in my room. So I hope that you find a good place where you are, that you can feel safe and you can feel protected and quiet and supported. And that's what I'd like to do through this video, right? So let's get it going. How do we predict the future of climate change? You can do it through computer simulation. If you like crunching huge sets of data, then this is a great field for you to go into. This is a great video to watch that I think will give you some reference to that. But we end up coming up with some global or general circulation models that use all of these things that are talked about in forecasting global warming. It is a huge system to try to simulate, and we come up with a couple of different scenarios. We don't do anything, and temperatures will increase by 4 to 8 degrees Celsius by 2100. We do a sustainable world where we take action to slow the increase of emissions, CO2 equivalent emissions, and we get maybe less than 2 degrees Celsius. Even if we stopped everything, we're still going to have committed warming, because that means that the systems on Earth are still absorbing heat. Even if we turned everything off today, it would still continue to warm up and affect the systems around it. And then we have today's world if we just stay where we are, and that's what it looks like graphically in your book. Shows the differences in temperature. Then if we want to try to reduce the environmental threat, we try to mitigate it. If you have a fire or a flood in your home, if your parents have ever had that, then they call a mitigation company, and they come in and they pull back the carpet and they pull back the pads and they tear out the walls and they try to get rid of the mold. That's mitigating the damage. That's what mitigation means. So if we try to mitigate it, it means that we are going to define the challenge. We understand that it's happening, and that's a big part of climate change denial or global warming denial, the fact that we are actually causing this. And if we stay as business as usual, it's going to be catastrophic. If we go to sustainable, then we're going to have to change and adapt. And this is a great visual in your book. It shows you the different wedges that we can take, and each wedge represents a certain kind of action that we'll take that will sustainably avoid CO2 equivalent emissions by 2065. And it's not just one area, it's efficiency and conservation in transportation, buildings, and electricity. It's using less fossil fuel, it's capturing some carbon that's out there and putting it back in the ground. It's using renewable sources and looking into new nuclear and increasing our biostorage. Some of these things we will talk about in our non-renewable and renewable energy chapters, but it's not just one thing that you're going to do. And a lot of you ask questions about what can I do personally to make a difference in rapidly changing temperatures on Earth. And that's the difference between climate change has always happened. We talked about that's been part of Earth's history, but it is happening faster. And that's what global warming refers to. It refers to the fact that we are doing an accelerated rate of temperature change that we have not seen in the past. And you can do things that involve your behavior in terms of transportation, in terms of your diet, in terms of how much electricity you use and where that electricity comes from and how it's generated. You can be more conservative in the kinds of things you consume, and those are things that are going to make a big difference. And just be an example to those around you, and they'll start asking you why you made those changes, and then you can explain that every bit helps, because it does. You can also see that there's certain things that we can do. It's called climate engineering, and your book talks about this, and you can do things like shooting things up into the stratosphere to try to reflect more sunlight. You can fertilize the ocean. Definitely look into reading more about that. And there are costs and there are risks to doing all of that, because we don't understand how human activities, if we start messing in an even bigger way with Earth systems, what is that going to do? This is a beautiful video on how whales change climate. That's called bioengineering. You also want to look at how we can adapt, because committed warming is going to happen. We're going to have to adapt, and adapting means we change our behavior. We change how we raise crops, we change how we use water, we change how we live on the coastline, and we don't keep supporting communities that live at risk in terms of storms and being flooded with sea level rise. So drier climate and drought, we look at increased rainfall. Both those things are going to happen, and we look at increasing heat, and we learn how to irrigate with drip systems, which is the best way to do that. We also look at the pattern of storms, and we look at who's going to be at risk and rising sea level, and we understand that not everybody's going to be affected the same. Some people are going to be affected differently, and we have to understand that in the developed world, we use far more of Earth's resources than those that are in developing countries, and we are actually putting them at risk by our lifestyle. So we have to decide, if we don't want to accept them to help them get out of their threatened area, then what are we going to do to not get their homeland so threatened? There are a couple of other things that happen in your chapter. What is the cost of adaptation? 2% of our GDP, and if we do nothing, it could be 4% of our GDP. So doing nothing will cost us more. Also look at the difference between the Montreal Protocol and climate change. They are not the same. The Montreal Protocol had to do with CFCs being manufactured by three countries, three corporations. We could monitor it very closely. Everybody agreed on the cause of the ozone hole. Not everybody agrees on the cause of rapidly changing climate and temperatures. Not everybody wants to say they're at fault. And so it's very difficult to nail it down and to come up with a comprehensive agreement. But as you can see, it's not just one thing that's going to get us to where we need to go. Also take a look at what California has done with their AB 32, Assembly Bill 32. They have been very progressive and aggressive, and they did it because they experienced heat waves, floods, wildfires, and drought. They experienced the reality of it, and it did not hurt their GDP. Also, make sure you look at the end of the chapter so you know that you've covered all of the main points. I hope this was helpful to you. Post any questions that you have. You can send them by Canvas, by email, and I just really want you to feel supported. I will try to do this with the next 3 chapters so that you get to see me and hear some of the things that I'm talking about, and you can understand them in a broader sense versus just seeing them on a PowerPoint. Have a great Saturday.